Welcome to The Explainer. Let's just dive right in, because today we're taking a journey way back in time to explore what is, hands down, the most important, and honestly, the most unlikely friendship in the entire history of our planet. This isn't just some cute story about animals. No, this is a story about brutal survival, evolutionary destiny, and a single, silent moment that completely rewired the trajectory of our species. Close your eyes for just a second. Imagine a world before modern comforts, before cities, before literally anything we'd recognize today. Okay, open them. Tens of thousands of years ago, Earth was absolutely unforgiving. Think of a harsh, terrifying, freezing world. Back then, early humans, we definitely weren't the comfortable apex predators we think of ourselves as today. Not even close. We were just highly vulnerable competitors in a completely ruthless landscape, fighting a grueling daily war for survival against the brutal elements of the Ice Age. When that sun went down, we were plunged into total, absolute darkness. And out in that dark, a constant, looming threat of massive apex predators that hunted in the night. Every single day was just this desperate competition for limited food. Let's be real, we were not the undisputed masters of the planet. We were just trying to make it to the next sunrise without getting eaten or freezing to death in the snow. So picture this. A small group of early humans is huddled tightly around the golden glow of a campfire, and just beyond that light, hidden in the freezing, misty darkness of the prehistoric forest, a hungry creature is watching them. It's a lethal predator. It hunts the exact same game we do. By every rule of nature, it should either attack or it should bolt from the flames. But instead of doing either of those things, it just waits. It sits there in the shadows, silently watching. Which brings us to arguably the most important question in human history. Why did it wait? And what exactly was this creature lurking in the dark? It's a question that completely upends everything we know about the brutal rules of prehistoric survival, because this single, unnatural hesitation, this one tiny moment of pause at the edge of the firelight, would eventually change the entire course of the world. Section 1. The Prehistoric Mystery Revealed. Okay, let's break the suspense. That mysterious watcher in the mist, that terrifying set of eyes reflecting the firelight, was none other than the feared prehistoric wolf. Seriously, the distant ancestor of the creature currently sleeping on your couch or begging for a treat was once our most direct, deadly competitor. Just think about the absolute rivalry between our two species back then. On one side, you have early humans, highly intelligent, fiercely territorial hunters who were absolutely terrified of wolves. On the other side, prehistoric wolves, lethal pack predators who hunted the exact same large game we did. There was zero trust here. None. We were sworn enemies competing for the exact same scarce calories in a frozen wasteland. An alliance between these two groups shouldn't just seem unlikely. Biologically speaking, it should be impossible. Which brings us to Section 2, the science of trust. Because this isn't some fantasy story or fairy tale. This is a fascinating scientific destiny, rooted deeply in the mechanics of evolutionary biology. I mean, how exactly do you get a bloodthirsty predator to sit down next to its biggest rival? It all comes down to a twist on a concept you probably already know: natural selection. Now, usually we hear this and think of survival of the fittest or the most aggressive, right? But in this specific, mind-blowing case, natural selection actually favored the survival of the friendliest. The wolves that actually survived and thrived near humans weren't the biggest and they weren't the meanest. They were the ones with a slightly different, calmer temperament. This incredible behavioral shift kicked off when, for a few bold wolves, pure curiosity simply overcame their natural fear of humans and fire. They kind of realized that hanging around human campsites was a massive hack for easy calories. Turns out, humans drop a lot of tasty food scraps and bones. Instead of burning immense energy hunting dangerous game, these less aggressive wolves hung back, scavenging our leftovers. And over generations, the friendlier wolves got the most free meals, meaning they survived longer and had more puppies. Biology literally began rewiring them for tameness. Look at the stark contrast here, before and after contact. Originally, interactions were defined by violent competition and mutual fear, right? We literally hunted against each other. But as these less aggressive wolves started hanging around human camps, the entire dynamic flipped to shared resources and developing trust. A relationship defined by bloodshed slowly, almost miraculously, transformed into a mutually beneficial alliance for survival. We actually started hunting with each other. Section 3. Forging an unlikely friendship. We're now entering the real emotional core of this explainer. Because once that biology started shifting, these two wildly different species began to deeply integrate their lives. It wasn't just about sharing a few bone scraps anymore. It became about shared survival. It started millennia ago with that initial, hesitant contact at the fire's edge. Then, centuries later, humans and wolves began tolerating each other's presence because, well, they served as a mutual alarm system against other predators. But then, generations down the line, something truly incredible happened. These wolves began actively protecting human children, the very same vulnerable humans they once might have looked at as prey. And finally, they began hunting side by side. The ultimate bond was forged.
I really want to emphasize this staggering number, 10,000 plus. This was not some overnight domestication. Somebody didn't just toss a bone to a wolf and suddenly get a golden retriever. No way. This was a grueling, multi-millennial process. It took over 10,000 years of shared warmth, shared fires, and heavily earned trust in the harshest environments imaginable for the wolf to truly become the dog.
Section 4. The greatest human invention. Let's zoom out for a second and look at the monumental impact this interspecies partnership had on the entire world. Because what happened next didn't just change the wolf, it completely revolutionized human history.
Basically, dogs helped build human civilization. With these proto-dogs by our side, humans could suddenly hunt much larger, way faster game. We could actually sleep soundly at night, finally knowing our camps were guarded by animals with incredibly sharp hearing and smell. They enabled us to travel safely across really dangerous terrains, sensing unseen dangers in the dark that our human eyes completely missed. And, quite literally, they provided shared body heat to help us survive those brutal Ice Age winters. They gave humans a superpower.
And the result of that superpower? Together, humans and dogs expanded across the entire planet. Anthropologists and scientists widely agree that humans likely wouldn't have survived the harshest environments on Earth, and we certainly wouldn't have conquered the globe as quickly as we did without our loyal four-legged companions right there by our side. We needed them just as much as they eventually needed us. Let this quote really sink in for a moment. The greatest invention in human history wasn't the wheel. It wasn't fire. It was trust. The domestication of the dog is the first time in planetary history that two top-tier predators looked at each other and decided, you know what, we're better off as a team. It's profoundly emotional when you really stop and think about the sheer scale of it.
So, I leave you with this final thought to ponder. Think back to that terrifying, freezing prehistoric forest. If that one curious, hungry wolf had never stepped out of the shadows and into the light of that campfire, if it had just given in to its instinct to attack or to run away, would human civilization as we know it even exist today? It is absolutely fascinating to realize that one small act of trust changed the future of an entire species.